There was a kingdom called Ogugu. The kingdom was known for its farming and beautiful mountains. Next to Ogugu was the Ori kingdom, richly blessed with gold and diamonds. It was in Ori that Okoye and his wife settled in. To people, they seemed like a loving couple, but what they did not know was that Okoye and his wife Adora were in an intercultural union. One can say an intertribal marriage, a union that was not common at that time. But in this case, it was an acceptable union, more like an abomination, if you will. For you see, Adora was from the Ogugu kingdom. People from the Ori kingdom did not associate with people from the Ogugu kingdom. Both kingdoms have had their years of bloodshed and blood feuds, escalated by the language barrier between themselves. There was no harmony amongst them. For decades, both kingdoms hated each other and sought to overthrow each other. To say that Okoye and Adora's union in this stringent atmosphere transcended tribal divide was an understatement. To them, language was no barrier. The Ori people did not know Adora's origin. With the help of her husband and in-laws, she learnt the language, customs, and blended in well with the people. Okoye, on the other hand, was in a unique position where he could speak both languages and trade his wares in both kingdoms undetected, as it was next to impossible to come across people who spoke both languages. One day, the king of Ori gathered his cabinet members and informed them that the warriors had intelligence that people were going missing at an alarming rate: men, women, and young teenagers. His aim was to find the source of this hideous crime and stop it at once. A young cabinet member said he had suspected this for some time. He believed that the people were being sold into slavery, but he, however, did not have evidence to prove this, and he did not know who was evil enough to do such a thing. One of the older cabinet members said the only people evil enough to do such thing was the Ogugu people. Everyone seemed to agree with this. The next point of action was to have a meeting with the warriors and plan a military-like strategy to attack the Ogugu kingdom and free the real people that were taken. This made sense since the Ogugu people were evil. The following day, at the crack of dawn, Okoye and his wife set out to the Ogugu kingdom as their usual practice to sell their wares. Once there, Adure, after the sales of the day, decided to visit her father's house. She informed them to get prepared as it was most likely that the Ori king would attack as he blamed the Ogugu people for the disappearance of his own people. While at her father's house, Okoye decided to go for some drinks with his friends. As they were drinking, his friends spoke about how their people, the Ogugu people, have been going missing and the king had yet to do anything about it. And that it was only recently decided that it was the Ori people who were most likely responsible for this, as they hated the Ogugu people. Unbeknownst to them, Okoye was an Ori man. Okoye asked them, when did the disappearance start? And they told him 2 months ago. That was when the first victim went missing. Okoye recalled that it was at this same time that the Ori people started going missing as well. Okoye kept this in his mind, saying that when he gets back home, he would tell his uncle, who was a cabinet member, what he had heard. It was getting late, and he had to get his wife's father's house, pick her up so that they can start their journey back home before nightfall. He decided to use a shortcut to get there faster. On his way down the path, it seemed like he was hearing voices from a distance. As he kept walking, it seemed that he could hear both the Ogugu language and the Ori language being spoken by what seemed like different voices. This was not common. He walked towards the voices. Upon getting closer, he could see four men. Two were from the Ogugu kingdom, as they had the Ogugu tribal marks on their bodies, and the other two were from the Ori kingdom. They were all speaking Ori and Ogugu interchangeably to each other. To Okoye, this was a rare sight. You do not see many people speaking these languages amongst themselves from both kingdoms. As Okoye got closer to understand what was being said, his face gradually turned pale and his entire body stood in fear. Standing with the four men was a man, or what looked like a spirit. It was talking to the men in a language Okoye had not heard before. The person had a very different skin tone. He seemed lighter and paler than a normal person. As curiosity overcame fear, Okoye sneaked closer. He then understood what was being said. The four men told the spirit that they would bring 20 more people for him. All he had to do was have the balance of the payment ready and wait for them at the Oji River. The river divides the kingdoms. He was to come to that river in the next 3 days. It was at this point that Okoye began to comprehend the hideous dialogue that was going before his eyes. He immediately ran to his wife's father's home and told his father-in-law what he had just witnessed. At first, it was difficult to believe what Okoye was saying. It was not common to see people from both kingdoms having a conversation, let alone having a conversation with a spirit for that matter. However, Okoye was not one to lie. He was a respected man in his community. He agreed that on the supposed day when the handover was to take over, he would go to the Oji River and witness what Okoye had just told them. At that, Okoye and Adora set out back home. Her father, Maazi Ebube, a wise and trusted cabinet head, could not sleep that night. If what Okoye said was true, then something really evil was going on under their noses. The next day, he went to the king and told him all he had heard. The Ogugu king, known to be kind and protective of his people, found it hard to believe what Maazi Ebube was telling him. He, however, knew that Maazi Ebube did not partake in gossip. So he agreed to send young warriors to accompany Ebube to the Oji River and witness what will happen. A similar situation was playing out at the Ori kingdom. Okoye, upon getting home, told his uncle Maazi Akunna what had happened. Akunna, being a cabinet member, ran to the king to inform him. The Ori king did not believe this. To him, it was the Ogugu people lying to hide their evil behaviors. Had it not been that Maazi Akunna was loyal to the throne, and a cabinet member at that, he would have been beheaded where he stood. As Akunna was leaving, the queen sent for him. She had heard all he had told the king and offered her own bodyguards to accompany Akunna to verify the situation. On the third day, all the Ori and Ogugu men assigned to this task were positioned near the river, with Okoye, Maazị Ebube, and Akunna present. They didn't have to wait for long. The spirit Okoye had told them about appeared on what seemed like a boat. This time, there were four of them. Then, the four men from the Ori and Ogugu kingdom that Okoye had talked about came out from the bushes with 20 people. People who looked like the Ori and Ogugu people. Men, women, and children, all weeping and begging for their lives. They were bound in chains. Upon seeing this, rage consumed the onlookers. They ran out of the hiding spot and attacked the slave traders. In the attack, two spirits were killed, while the other two escaped as they were not expecting to be attacked. The two bodies of the spirits, the four slave traders, and all the rescued victims were taken to the Ogugu king. The rescuers told the king all that had happened. Okoye acting as a translator. Upon hearing all this, and with all the evidence gathered, because of the urgency and heinous crimes committed, the Ogugu king and his cabinet men started their journey to the Ori kingdom. Once there, the Ori king and the Ogugu king stood side by side with the evidence before them and hearing the accounts of the victims, with Okoye recounting how he had seen these men in the forest and heard them talking about 20 persons. The Ori king believed. The slave traders confessed to how they had been taking people and selling them to the white man. There and then, they were sentenced to death. A declaration was agreed upon that both kingdoms would combine their military might to protect their people from these foreign slave traders. Okoye was appointed first of his kind, a diplomatic translator for both kingdoms, promoting the language of their people. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this short story, please share, like, comment.